In this lesson, we're going to tackle that problem we have faced in the previous lesson related to creating new activities. So for example, if I'm gonna create new activity, I see that new activity object gets added to activities array, but on the timeline page, inside the activity select box, we don't see the new activity. So what's the problem in here? First of all, let's recall where we get data for this select box. So let's open up timeline item component, and in this component we are using function inject to get access to activity select options array provided by the root component. And then this array is getting passed as a prop options to base select component, which is going to render options of that select box. And now let's see how we actually provide this data from inside app component. And the first thing that we are noticing in here is that we are providing access not to the activity select options reactive variable, but the actual value that is stored inside this reactive variable, because here we are referencing value property. So that means inside those descendant components where we're gonna access this array will not be reactive. And we actually need this to be reactive because activity select options is actually a computed property defined inside activity.js module. And this activity select options array depends on activities array, and every time activities array receives new activity or some activity is removed from this array, after that activity select options array gets recalculated. But since while providing access to this array we were referencing value property, this means we were actually providing access to the initial version of this activity select options array. So our base select component is not going to receive updated activity select options array after activity creation or deletion. And therefore UI will not be updated and the select box will not show new activity options. That is exactly what is happening right now. So to fix this problem, we actually have to maintain reactivity inside descendant components. So in order to do so, we have to actually provide access to reactive variable itself, but not its underlying value. So we don't need to use here value property. Let's remove this property. And this way we are maintaining reactivity, and whenever one of the descendant components is going to receive access to activity select options array, this variable will store reactive data, and in this case, base select component is going to receive updated activity select options array, and therefore UI will be updated and the new activity option will appear in the list of options. Because here we are maintaining reactivity when we're providing access to activity select options array from the parent component. And now if we're going to check it one more time, after we create new activity we can see that the object was added to activities array just like before, but this time on the timeline page, we also see that activity select options array now contains 4 objects, where every option corresponds to a particular activity. And therefore that select box now contains options for all activities, including our new activity sleeping. And now we can start tracking time for this activity, setting up the goal on the activities page for this sleeping activity. And pretty much we can do everything with this new activity that we can do with other activities. So whenever we need to maintain reactivity while using provide inject technique, we have to make sure that we are actually providing access to reactive variables, but not underlying values stored inside those variables. So now I'm gonna do the same for timeline items variable and provide this reactive variable instead of underlying value, so we can remove value property. And in that place where we are referencing this variable in one of the descendant components, we should reference underlying value by using value property, since timeline items array is now reactive variable. So after doing these changes, everything is supposed to work as before. We can still set up the time for a particular activity and then start tracking this time, so the time will be decreasing on activities page. And of course we can completely reset this time. Let's continue our development in the next lesson.